Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Humanity Needs the Horses. We have the lovely Becci Godfrey and a guest with us today. And apologize for this not being live. We had some major technical issues. We tried everything we could, and it just wasn't working. So we're going to record this for you and post it, and you can watch it from there. So my name is Linda Watson. I am from Equine Leadership. You've possibly seen some of our magazines here before. This year's magazine is going to look like this once we get it printed and once the time comes that we can get it out to the printer and get it back from them and send it to you safely. In the meantime, we're going to do these. So welcome, Becci. It's so nice to have you. And your ponies there too, which are having a good scratch, it looks like. Excellent. So Becci's coming to us from the wonderful English countryside, which is about tea time there, isn't it? Yeah. So let's start with an introduction. So if you want to tell us about you and your farm and your horses there.
Sure. Gosh, yes, my name is Becci Godfrey, as you say, and behind me I've got Squirrel, the little bay horse, and behind her is Dainty, the grey. And we've got one other as well, who's out of shot. And together we run leadership, team building, personal development programs here in the beautiful Sussex countryside. And if it was a nice, warm, sunny day, I'd be outside. But it's a cold day and it's raining, so we're in the barn.
Excellent. All right. So equine leadership is all about, and Humanity Needs Horses is all about horses living as close to nature as possible. So can you talk to us a bit about how you do that there and what challenges we all face? We have horses we don't want our horses running on the road, obviously. So what we need to do, how do you do that? And what challenges do you face?
Yes, for me, this is an ever-growing topic of knowledge base that I'm gathering, and certainly I've transitioned from a very conventional way of doing horses, where you stable them, and you had them out in fields and paddocks and things like that. And when they were shod, and I used to ride competitively, and so that was my background in horses. But since learning to be an equine assisted educator, I've learned so much about the horse's needs, and so much about in order for them to be able to do this work, meeting their needs is absolutely paramount. So we, over a series of years, have been sort of transitioning the horses, and I've got a completely different herd now to the herd that I started with. And we've gone for native breeds, so something that's sort of hardy. However, we've had a real challenge this year. We brought a new horse into the herd, and where our horses were shod before, just because that's what we did and that's sort of the advice we were given, we've all transitioned them over to be barefoot, and that's not been without its challenges. Just their feet, having to adapt, the shape of the feet, the angle of their feet, dietary changes, learning to supplement their nutrition, so getting hay analysis done to find out where we have an excess of minerals and a deficiency in minerals. And then getting supplements to balance that out, and I'm still working on that. I've still got a lot to learn. And then how do we deal with the fact that our horses are very prone to laminitis, and it's spring in the moment here in the UK, and our barefoot trimmer recommended we got this laminitis app that tells you what's the risk of the animal getting laminitis. And for the last few days it's been red. It's been on absolute max, which really suggests don't turn them out. They have to be fed soaked hay and no grass at all. And Squirrel behind me has had a bout of laminitis in the last week. So we're finding our feet and learning how to manage that, because the shoes masked it. We didn't know this, but the shoes were masking the fact that she was getting laminitis to such a degree that she was. Mm-hmm. And so now the shoes have come off and she's got to grow a whole new foot. She's being extra sensitive. So we're having to extra manage her intake of food, balancing it out with herbs to support the system, and exercise as well, so that she's using up the sugar that's in her system, whatever she eats. So for me, it's a huge work in progress, and I work with the horses as closely as possible, so that if they say they want to be turned out overnight and it's practical to do so, we'll turn them out overnight. We keep them together as a three,
Mhm.
At the moment, they're not at the stage where we can put them all together for long periods of time unless they're out grazing, because they will fight. So that's one of our challenges, is with a new herd member. There's been some challenges with that new introduction. And so, yeah, how do you manage that? We're managing it by keeping them as separate at the moment, but having them close to each other. You just have to feel your way, I feel. It's something that you and the horses do together. And yeah, you just give it your best shot.
Absolutely. I love that you do it together. What's that laminitis app, if I may ask, so people we can share
I
that
think it's
afterwards?
literally called that, a
Oh, really?
laminitis app. And
Okay.
it's a global app, and
Oh, nice.
it feeds into the weather stations and all sorts of other bits of data. It's a little bit crude,
Wow.
but we never knew, like we didn't have so much feedback as we have now. And
Yeah,
so that means we can reduce turnout time and make sure they get extra exercise and things like that. So it is helping with their management. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And they have so much room to move around. I've had the joy of coming to your place and seeing that. So they, even inside, they have so much room to move around
Yeah, we're
as
super
well.
blessed
Yeah.
here with a really big indoor barn that we also sort of use as a loafing area where they can come in and have a roll. It's got a sand floor. Yeah,
Absolutely. Excellent.
I'm very grateful for that. But it's one of the reasons I do the work, because we live somewhere beautiful. We have horses. We have this indoor space. I have so many facilities and resources that other people don't have. You know, even if you don't,
Yeah.
if you have access to horses, you don't always have an indoor space to work from. So I feel like I really have to do something with this, because it's important to share. If you have a surplus
Yeah.
of anything, share it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And even your outdoor pastures have hills, and it's not all just flat. They have hills and shade, and they get the exercise out there.
Yeah, it makes me mud this winter. It
It's a
was
little
so
wet.
wet, and that was one of the challenges this winter, is just how to stop the pasta being completely wrecked.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
in hindsight, actually, maybe we should have got it completely wrecked. Then it would just be like a mud patch for the summer, but there's no grass. So that's what I mean. It's a learning experience, but
absolutely.
it was
Yeah,
very wet, and we chose not to turn out overnight in the winter.
yeah,
Um, because it just does. We're on clay here as well, so it's
yeah.
extra compact, not good draining soil. So yeah, you just have to make do and do the
Absolutely.
best with what you have.
Exactly, exactly. And our first interview with Debbie LaHaye mentioned that she was on clay too, and how the drainage was not good, so they had a sand ring.
Mm.
Absolutely interesting. So, Becky, you've written for us twice. So you wrote in Equine Leadership 2 with the women's empowerment, and you wrote in Equine Leadership 4 with Freedom is a Choice. Um, so let's move into the work that you do and sharing the voice and the wisdom of the horse. So can you share with us, just start the work that you do with the horses and how you collaborate with them? And
Yeah, so I mainly focus around the corporate area, so either team building or leadership days, and um, and then I do sort of more one-to-one or small group personal development work. So I'm also a trained meditation teacher and a Reiki teacher as well. And so with the corporate work, it's more about the sort of strategic outcomes, helping people to connect back into their body, starting to see things from a different perspective, starting to become more aware of their own leadership skills, and how their team functions and operates. And then with the one-to-one work and the personal development work, it's about taking people perhaps even a deeper still into who are you, because for me the fundamental of all the work that I do, whether it's in a therapy room or out here with the horses, is really, in order to sort of flourish in life, you need to discover who you are. And that can be on getting back into your body, so on the physical level, being in connection with your body; on a mental level, realizing you're not your mind; and then on a spiritual soulful level, discovering that you're something, you're beyond the body, the beyond the mind. You're this eternal essence that is the observer of all things, and has immense power. And much of my work is sort of centered around that theme and that
for
ethos.
sure, for sure. So if we go back to say the corporate and the the strategic objectives, how do the horses step in and assist you with that?
I've got a wonderful story. it was a couple of years ago now. A large airline company asked us to do a corporate team building day for them. And as I always do when I'm planning these days, I will go and sit with the horses. I'll take a pad and a pen and I'll just chat to them and say, look, this is the group, this is their challenges, what do you want to do? And it was a point where I was beginning to sort of transition away from the very structured, formatted, team building type experiences into doing more free-form kind of learning sessions with people. And I was sat there sort of sitting down, like working out how I was going to run this day. And very clearly I heard sort of Squirrel's voice in my head just say, just stick to the plan. Meaning we've got a sort of a standard template team building day. Don't tinker with it. Just, deliver that day. We know that day. Just stick to the plan. So we did, and we ran that day and they loved it and they got a lot of value from it. And then the very following day, we had a women's empowerment day. And I was running that with a lead practitioner. And that was, whereas the session we'd done with the corporate was all in the barn. And it had like obstacles, you had the jumps and the hoops and the cones and all the colourful stuff out. The Women's Empowerment Day was all done out in the fields, and it didn't feel right to get any of the coloured objects. It was all just the natural rustic poles that were there, and it was two completely different days, really different structures, different energies, different, and both appropriate and perfect. And I think I took a lot from that about you need to feel into what the client needs and deliver what the client needs. And as a practitioner, you need to have a huge diversity and huge range in what you're able to deliver. And you need to be able to deliver them both very effectively.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you talked about your women's empowerment days. Can you tell us more about that and how the horses are involved?
So I won't lie, I created Women's Empowerment Days because when I was running personal development days, it was pretty much all women anyway. So I thought, wouldn't it be great if everyone working on knew it was only going to be women? And actually, wouldn't it be great if we looked at the dynamic between the masculine and feminine, and we started to explore that feminine dynamic? And that's where it came from. And I started delivering them with a colleague of mine, Julia. And we did one session here. And one thing I really wanted to bring in was the ridden element. And so in our training, we'd put a bareback pad on a horse, and we'd had each person put a helmet on, and they sat on the horse while someone else led it. And my horse at the time, Murphy, who helped me set this business up, I'd sort of been positioning him to take on this role. He wasn't really that kind of horse. And she came from a riding school background. She'd run and she was a riding trainer. Mm-hmm. So between us, we had the skills to do this. And I thought it was fascinating. On the day of that experience, Murphy comes in the lane. and and so couldn't take part in the day, or not in any walking parts of the day. No. But the amazing thing was that actually Squirrel behind us stepped up. And so women's empowerment, it really was a women's day. And everyone was very petite. All the riders were sort of small, and we just gave them a small little set. And it was really interesting. I did sort of enjoy watching people being stretched like that, supporting one another. They didn't know each other. These women didn't know each other, but they supported one another in that way. Mm-hmm. We don't do a ridden element anymore. That practitioner, she's moved to France, so I can't work with her anymore. We did do a couple of sessions with her stallion up in the middle of the country, which was always really interesting because we never told them that he was a stallion. At the end of the day, once they'd done all this, because people have ideas about stallion, he's a big Spanish horse and all that. It's only at the end of the day we'd say, you've been working with the stallion today, and they'd be like, oh my God. And so in that sense as well, I don't know, as long as you have a focus, as long as you have an intention for the day, and be it the intentions as simple as people will get out of this what they need, then I always find them to be really powerful, really magical days. And now I love them because people come as they are.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. The last session I ran, my co-facilitator had just had quite a big bereavement. Her horse had very suddenly had to be put to sleep. And I very we had a very honest, frank conversation. I said, do you want to go ahead and
Yeah.
run this day? And she said, yes, I think I do. And I said, brilliant, how can I support you? And she said, if I go quiet, then please just step in and just step forwards. And I was like, okay, great. And I said, are you going to tell them? Are you going to tell them that this is what's in your world right now?
Yeah.
And she said, I'll see, I'll feel into the day and I'll see if it's appropriate. Anyway, we're doing the morning meet and greet and sort of getting to know one another. And she introduced herself. And then she said, I'm going to tell you this. I've made a judgment that I'm going to share this information. She said, I experienced a very significant bereavement a week ago. My horse very suddenly had to be put to sleep, and she said, I am feeling it. She said, I'm okay to be here, and Beccie knows about this, and she knows what to do if I go quiet. She said, and I can look after myself. And it was just like, it was so powerful for one of the people in the room. She said that set the tone for the whole session, that we were going to be open and share and be vulnerable in that kind of way. But what I took from it was this beautiful phrase, I can look after myself.
Yes.
And it just brought in so much clarity. So they're just magical experiences. You set them up, you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And you just run with the dynamic that's present.
Somebody's sneaking up behind there very carefully. I want to be part of it. That's brilliant. I understand you do some, or I know you do some networking work.
Yes,
Can we
yes.
talk
So,
about that a
and
bit? I think that's brilliant.
Monday just gone, actually, this week, yesterday, we should have done our spring networking nays session with the horses. So I started doing these taster sessions with the horses, and I realized what was happening is people that didn't know each other were swapping business cards. And I was like, okay, I think there's something in this. So then I ran a series of networking, like develop your networking skills with the horses. We had a different theme each session that we ran, with the dual benefit that actually also you were getting to network at the same time. And then Emma Taylor started doing the networking nays model. And I went along to a couple of her sessions, and I really liked that. And it was a lot less work on my behalf. So I've been doing that for, I think, 4 years now.
Wow.
And consistently running sort of 3 or so sessions a year. And they're brilliant. They're utterly brilliant. And people that come because they might be curious about the horses and just they've heard about it and they want to experience it. People come back because they just love hanging out with the horses. And it's also the sorts of people yeah, she's nodding, the sorts of people that they enjoy connecting with. And also people come because it just, they find it utterly amazing and they don't know how it works, but everyone just becomes a lot more authentic. When you're in that space with the horse, it's a level playing field for everyone. Nobody's familiar with these, or that familiar with these horses. No one's that familiar with this environment. Some people are horsey, some people aren't. Some people were horsey a long, long time ago, and it's a great opportunity to reconnect with that. And we just set it up. We do, initial 1-minute introductions, and then we come out into the barn, and you have 3 10-minute meetings with one-to-one meetings with someone in the group that you want to get to know better based on that initial conversation. And that's done out with the horses. So the horses will freely roam around and stick their nose in and say hi, and and sort of ruffle up your hair, and or just wander off and just eat some grass and not pay any attention to you at all. But they're just there. Usually they come in and introduce themselves. But it just helps, one of my attendees just said it just really helps to break down the barriers. It's
Absolutely.
really
Yeah.
happy to sort of open up. And so, so as soon as all this Corona stuff is over, I'm excited because we've got a marketing session, an extended networking days with a marketing session in the summer scheduled. And we've bumped our April one back to September. And I love doing them. The horses love doing them. And it's a great way as well for people to get an understanding of what the horse work might be, to get the word out there, really.
Absolutely. No, it's brilliant. And then it leads into my next question is, it sounds like the horses are holding space.
Mm.
in essence, for people to get to know each other a bit more by just being the horse and doing what they do. So I guess my next question is, like, ties into is, how do you create space for the horses to evolve, or the horses to be in a safe space, and then how do you create space for the humans and sort of that horse-human connection?
Mm. So for me, this happens well before you even start to have a session with a client. This is your day-to-day priority, to bond and connect with the horses, and to practice holding a space for one another. So really what happens when a client comes along is they just become part of our herd. They just join what we're already doing. They become included in our unit. And so that space looking might change from day to day, depending on the horse's needs or the person's needs. So there's been many a time I've come out to the barn to do a session with Dainty, and I'm like, okay, let's, maybe do some exercise today, maybe do some walking, some agility, lifting your feet over poles. And she's just looked at me and gone, nah, you're way too stressed, woman. Just like sit down and do your meditation. And I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed to stick to my agenda and my plan, because she doesn't want me anywhere near her. I'm just too stressed. And so that for me is the whole dynamic that we run here, is that every time I come out to the barn is with this absolute innocence, or the field, this absolute innocence, and say, what do you want today? What do you want to do today? And it's amazing what they share when you come with that question. And I think it builds trust.
Yeah.
It builds the bond between you.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I think I do my own personal development work, so that I'm
Yeah.
practicing myself to become more and more a sort of silent vessel, so that when I'm facilitating a session, it's not my agenda.
Yes.
This is the co-created agenda between all of us, and my job is to be very aware of that and
For
pay
sure.
attention
Yeah.
to the subtle dynamics. I've just run a online webinar series with a couple of facilitators, and one of them, Dr. Sue Binks, was talking about what makes a great facilitator. And one of the things that she highlighted for me is that facilitation with horses is really complex. Facilitation without horses is complicated. But you add the extra dynamic and the extra dimension of the horses, and it really becomes quite a complex dynamic that you're playing with. And so I've become clear over the years that I can never be too present. I'm always striving to be more and more in the moment, and just letting go of what I think I know or needs to happen, and just being totally open to what the moment presents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's great. And more present for your clients too.
You role model what you seek and desire for them. Absolutely.
Exactly. Absolutely. Brilliant. So then do you have any stories either of your own, or perhaps of a client that that you can share, that really emulate a lot of what you've been discussing? You've talked a little bit about a few of them, but do you have a story that maybe we can share with everybody, that or a few?
Yeah, I mean,
Choose
there's
one.
hundreds. I remember when we did a Teens Empowerment Day, actually, and a couple of young boys came and did the session together. And it was with my old horse Murphy. And I remember that in the latter part of the day, we set up an obstacle course. And the journey was that each of the boys was to navigate the horse through the obstacle course. And they set out this course, and my horse Murphy was starting to be quite objectional to going through the path. He was planting his feet and saying, no, I'm not going to go. And so I asked, what's going on for you right now? And he said, I just don't feel confident. And I remember that in owning that issue, in owning that dynamic, Murphy's energy just completely shifted. I was like, well, this is interesting. Where are we going to go from here? So I was like, what support do you need? And he said, I think if you just stood over there in the far corner where we finish, I think that would be enough. That would be okay. And so the other participant and I stand in the corner, and you can just see Murphy in his whole body. He got the work. I mean, the business was his business. It was set up entirely because this was something he wanted to do. And you could just see in his whole being that he just got this little boy so much. And so as this young lad just sort of sorts himself out, orientates himself, and just works out in his own mind, you can see this like positive affirmation starting to come in. This like, you can see he was letting go of the old story, I can't do it. And he was just choosing for this new path. He was making a new decision.
Nice.
Murphy's just standing there so patiently waiting, like just, you can see him willing him into, you can do this, you've got this, you can do it. And then eventually the little boy just, he works it out, he's got it all together, he kind of stands up tall, he sort of takes the rope, he becomes very focused and very purposeful, and he just looks at Murphy and he just says, let's go. And Murphy went, yeah, hell yeah, let's go. And they just completed the rest of the course. There was no challenge, there was no resistance, it was just so beautiful. And it was a very sort of a treasured moment that I know will last with that child for the rest of his life, even if it's not a conscious memory that he thinks of.
Yeah.
I just know that somewhere there's an energetic imprint in him that I can do it.
For sure. Absolutely. Oh yeah, it's lifetime lessons in that moment.
Yeah.
That moment where I'm going to do it. Absolutely. Beautiful story. Wow. I love our obstacle courses. They always seem to be, there's a lot of power in those, in doing an obstacle course.
Yeah, and it's great for kids as well because they can relate to it. They love building it, and then they can relate to each challenge as what that represents. And it's colorful, and yeah, absolutely. I think the horses enjoy it as well. I love the way that each obstacle, we put an energy on it. The horse doesn't care what it is they're looking at. We put an energy on it, and the horses respond to that. And I always find it can be very interesting to unpick, if it's appropriate to unpick what that might mean or what's going on in that point.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I posted it the other day on with a picture, and one of your quotes was, the horse reacts to the story behind the story. So it's, that seemed fitting there. It's just that we can tell a story, but what's the story behind that? What's the energy, as you said? What energy do we bring to that challenge?
And we do it to people. We don't realize, but we're checking into other people's energy all the time. So I do some business coaching. And what people don't realize is that when you're looking to buy a product, particularly if that product is like another coach or a service in that way, whether we know it or not, there's a good chance that energetically we're checking in. Because my clients tell me that, when they can't take on more work, they don't get more work. And when they've got more capacity, suddenly the clients seem to appear. This is amazing synchronicity.
Yeah.
And it's because we're all energetically connected.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so if you've got any kind of barrier or block to something happening, if you've got a belief that's sabotaging your success, or it's limiting your confidence, then your customers are feeling that, they're experiencing that. Exactly. And so that's influencing their decision or their choice to buy. Yeah. We don't always realize it on a conscious level, but that is happening.
Yeah, interesting. You use the word confidence there as that, the obstacle course with the teen. So interesting. And there we go. So let's go to the bigger picture now. We like to talk about the bigger picture. That's sort of where Humanity Needs the Horses has come. Right now, humanity's in a challenging time, and how do we, how do the horses model? So first, let's look at the model that the horses provide and how they live, And what can we as humanity learn from that? Not necessarily as individuals, but as humanity.
So I feel like I want to answer this question on Squirrel's behalf because
Okay.
she's here. She's
She's right
been
there.
really, really super present. My feeling is horses have got so much to teach us about life generally. It's life was happening before our current set of circumstances, and it's going to happen afterwards. So don't just pay attention to life when times are tough. Pay attention to life every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And my sense is with them is, what are you building? Like, what foundations are you building? Are you building your relationships? Are you building on your health? Are you building on learning to be a kinder, more generous person? Your behaviors today influence your tomorrow. So what are you choosing to do today? Pay attention to that.
Absolutely.
Are you consciously making your choices? Are you running on autopilot?
Yeah.
Are you aware that not listening to your body, there's a long-term consequence for that? And I feel like there's been many people that have been running themselves ragged to try and achieve an ultimate outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, in reality, there is no ultimate outcome. We're here to experience life. I know, because I did it. For many years, I was like, but if I just achieve this and I just achieve that, now I will get to somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it never happened. And then until I realized, the whole, like when people say life is a journey. And I didn't get that. I had to be well into my mid-30s before I understood. I was like, oh, I get it. I'm not going to get anywhere. It's like, and the same problems are going to keep showing up over and over again until you address them.
Absolutely.
So we're here for the experience. And what choices are you making every day?
I like that. Yeah.
Not the big choices, but the small choices. What are you making every day?
Absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you, Squirrel. So then if we can finish on one call to action. I always like to finish this on a call to action for humanity or for humans as individuals, but all the same. What would you and the horses bring to the table as that call to action?
I would say be present. Bring yourself fully into the present moment. Notice how you feel. Notice the environment around you. Notice how the people are around you. Start to let go of jumping into the future and worrying what might happen, and start to let go of the past and thinking that it's going to be what drives your future, and start to just come totally into the here and now, where there's so much playfulness, there's so much innocence, there's a lot more serenity. One thing that the horses often give me feedback is, damn it, we overthink. We're just, as humans, we're just massive overthinkers. It's just,
Absolutely.
and I can see that they see it drives us to distraction. Yes, they still have challenges and they still have problems. They still have fears and phobias and things they don't like, but they don't suffer. They don't suffer like we suffer.
Point.
They let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I like that the horses don't suffer like we do. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I think we are at the end of our questions. I want to thank you for today. I also want to thank you here for all the work you've done with our magazine. You have brought it from what it was to, whoops.
That's Squirrel.
I think that's a hit. Just brought it from what it was to what it is, and the professional looking magazine it is. So I want to publicly thank you for that. And I hope I get to come and see your farm again, because it's beautiful, and I loved walking the land and meeting the horses. So on that note, thank you so much. I hope everybody enjoys this, and we will be posting this very soon as I can get it put together. And Becci, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Yeah.
All right.
Thank
And thank
you
your
for
horses. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.